Look, I know I'm late to this. I know DC Fandome was about like 2 months ago, but hey, better late than never, okay? Right off the bat, this film is going to be amazing. Did you guys watch Matt Reeves' like 30-minute interview where he just talked about the Batman? Like, you can tell this film is in safe hands. Matt Reeves is a fan. Not only was he talking 100 miles per second, not only was he flexing his Batman knowledge while simultaneously talking about the film he was creating, but he also just seemed like a fan. Like, I was watching him just talk about the Batman, and I just kind of went, wait a sec. This is like if I was making a Batman film and I was being interviewed and I had to talk about it. Like, Matt Reeves is a fan and he understands Batman. So a little bit of personal context. My favorite Batman film is Batman Begins. Yes, yes, yes. Dark Knight's best film ever. One of the best films ever made. Heath Ledger's performance. I get it. But to me, Batman Begins just feels like Batman. It's the most stylistic of the Batman Nolan films. There's darker shadows. The cinematography is just better. The Begins costume is even better. I don't like the multiple pieced armor that we get in Dark Knight, and the cowl's just weird. Yes, he can turn his head, but I just don't like it. The Begins suit is just bigger and hulkier and menacing, and that's how I see Batman. I also like the way Batman Begins tells Bruce's origin story. We see it through his perspective, and throughout the next 2 Nolan films, we don't really get much of Bruce's perspective. It's more kind of just Bruce's reacting to everything. But with Batman Begins, it's Bruce's origin story. You see him become obsessed with fear and learning to overcome his fear to become fear. Everything about that film is great. The screenplay has some of the most amazing dialogue I've ever heard of. It just sticks with me. To me, the dialogue in Batman Begins is just the best. It's very poetic. It feels a lot like how Frank Miller writes his comics. Now, why am I talking about Batman Begins when I'm analyzing the trailer for the Batman? Well, that's just because the Batman seems like it's going to take everything I loved about Batman Begins, but blow it way out of proportion and make it so much better. The Batman is going for a more stylistic comic booky look, and I am in love with that. Ever since we got Batman vs Superman and Zack Snyder's interpretation of Batman, I just want a more heightened comic booky Batman film. Keep the realism, but give me things like Batman wearing a grey and black Batman suit. Give me the Batmobile with actual bat wings. Give me the Batplane. Give me Batman with more heightened gadgets and holographic technology. And most importantly, just give me Batman shots that look like comic book panels. Oh, I also forgot to mention that Ben Affleck is my favorite interpretation of Bruce Wayne in live action. I mean, the man just looks like Bruce Wayne. He sounds like Bruce Wayne. The intensity and energy he gives as Batman is just Batman. I mean, look at that face. That look right there. That just screams Batman to me. Yes, the killing, blah, 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 I don't care. Ben Affleck is just the greatest Batman. That being said, I do think that the interpretation of Batman in Batman Begins is the most purest form of Batman we've gotten on the big screen. Aside from seeing Batman as being temporary, everything we see about Bruce Wayne in Batman Begins is just pure, untainted Batman. I mean, regardless of all that, I just think Ben Affleck is the best Batman. I mean, he just looks like Bruce Wayne. He sounds like Bruce Wayne. He looks like animated series Bruce Wayne. He looks like comic book Bruce Wayne. He's just perfect. Now, one thing that really stuck out to me during the Batman trailer was just how stylistic and comic booky the cinematography looked. I mean, shots like the Batmobile starting up look like the opening shots to Batman the Animated Series, and so does this shot here with Batman rising up against the thugs. That's literally the rooftop shot from the animated series intro. The scene with Batman in that crowded cell with all the cops and he goes and grabs one of the guys just feels like something out of the Arkham games where you spot a Riddler informant and he just goes to interrogate them. The design for the Batcave also looks like it's very inspired by Arkham Origins because of how big and minimalistic it looks at the same time. The sheer scale of it also reminds me of the animated series Batcave, and I just feel like if Matt Reeves gets this Batman trilogy, then I feel like by the end of said trilogy, we'll see the Batcave filled with everything. We'll get the giant penny, we'll get the dinosaur, we'll get the dead Robin suit. Now, during Matt Reeves' DC Fandome interview, he stated that one of his big influences for the film was The Long Halloween. And I read The Long Halloween, it's great. My only issue with The Long Halloween is the ending. It just felt like, here's the big twist ending, even though the ending might not actually correlate to the rest of the story. But aside from that, I love The Long Halloween. I love how stylistic it is. I love that each issue takes place over a certain holiday and it's all linked in with the holiday killer. I think Tim Sale's artwork and the use of color is very interesting. And overall, if you're excited to watch the Batman, I definitely recommend reading Batman The Long Halloween. Now, not only does the opening of the trailer give off the Long Halloween vibes with this mysterious killer, which is meant to be the Riddler, it also feels heavily inspired by David Fincher's Zodiac, which Matt Reeves said was was another one of his big influences for the Batman. Now, having recently watched Zodiac, you can really see the influence Matt Reeves took from David Fincher's film. Now, not only do the Zodiac killer and Riddler sound similar, but also the idea of leaving little messages at the crime scenes is taken from Zodiac. And since Zodiac is a story that's based on real life events, having that sort of realistic element into the Batman kind of just makes it feel more grounded and realistic, which is a good thing. Because as much as I love comic book stuff, you definitely need it to feel grounded and believable. Because if you don't believe what's happening, then it's just going to seem a little bit ridiculous. Because like we've seen with many comic book films in the past, namely the Joel Schumacher Batman films, if there is no serious grounded element to your story, then it's just not gonna work.
What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age!
So Robert Pattinson as Batman looks great. And man, is he an interesting choice. I mean, as a kid, I remember Robert Pattinson most prominently as being Cedric Diggory from Harry Potter, and obviously, yes, Twilight. I haven't watched all the Twilight films. I've watched the first one, the second one, and Breaking Dawn Part 1, and they're whatever. They're kind of like guilty pleasures, but they're also like dumb. I don't know, I've never really seen them all properly, but from what I could tell, they were fine, but I was like 13 when I watched them. But anyway, Robert Pattinson has clearly moved past those films and he's definitely progressed as an actor, because I started looking at his films when he was cast as the Batman, and films like Good Time and The Lighthouse and The Lost City of Z just showed to me that Robert Pattinson is an amazing actor. Specifically Good Time and The Lighthouse. I mean, he's good in The Lost City of Z, but I mean, he's not really in it that much. He's sort of like a background character and his performance is fine, but he's not a real standout. But man, his work in Good Time and The Lighthouse, the intensity he brings is just perfect for Batman. And performance-wise, it looks like he's nailing it. This shot right here, that look he has right there is Batman. Like I said about Ben Affleck earlier, Robert Pattinson has that exact same look. The look of anger and darkness welling up inside him. It's just, he looks like he's gonna be perfect. I also like the almost sickly, unnaturally pale look he has. It just sort of makes me think that this Bruce Wayne just spends all of his time in the Batcave. He doesn't really get out that much, and so he's kind of deficient in natural sunlight. The one thing I will say about this Bruce Wayne is his hair is interesting. When I saw it, he sort of reminded me of Daniel Radcliffe in The Woman in Black. I understand the design choice. They sort of want to make him look more depressed and unsociable, but to me, when I think of Bruce Wayne, I think of the more slick-backed or more put-together, neat, side part look that Ben Affleck had in Batman vs Superman. That being said, I do predict that by the end of the film, this version of Bruce Wayne will break out of his depression phase, and he'll become a more clean-cut, sociable, playboy billionaire Bruce Wayne that we all know and love. Now, there's a lot of talk going around, and Matt Reeves mentioned this in his interview, that this version of Bruce Wayne is a year into his career, and he's still got that anger and that ferocity. He'll do anything he can to stop the criminal and rid the streets of Gotham from its crime. And so it seems like the main arc for this version of Bruce Wayne in this film is to move past his anger and depression and become a more positive force as the Batman. Especially since this version of Batman is pretty brutal. I mean, a little too brutal. I mean, holy shit, that was fucking badass. One thing I'm very happy about is that Matt Reeves is keeping Brutal Batman, because Brutal Batman is my favorite thing ever. I don't like Batman killing, but when Batman will beat a thug to the inch of his life just to get the information he needs, like, yeah, give me that. I love Brutal Batman. Especially since cinematically, whenever you get a Brutal Batman, you get scenes like the Ben Affleck warehouse fight in Batman vs Superman. I mean, that fight scene is perfection. The sort of intensity and rapid motion and the way Ben Affleck's Batman just beats thugs up quickly, it's just so great. It's like the Arkham games came to life. And I think Matt Reeves is going to deliver the goods for us in the Batman. I mean, that shot. He hits the thug, what, like 15, 20 times? Like, yes. I'm all for that. If we get this in an action sequence, oh yeah. The Batsuit is interesting. To me, it looks like the Telltale Batman suit, but a lot more unrefined. And for the most part, I like it. The one thing I don't really like about the suit is the cowl, like the sort of stitched together leather with the weird ears. I don't really like it that much, especially since his mouth hole is like way too wide. It looks almost Daredevil-like. Apparently, this suit's gonna get destroyed and he'll get a more sleeker Arkham Origins inspired suit by the end, which I think is great. And I actually think we do see the shot in the trailer where the suit gets destroyed. But can we just take a second to appreciate the cast for this film? Because I mean, holy crap, this film is star-studded. We've obviously got Robert Pattinson as Batman, but Jeffrey Wright as Jim Gordon. At first, I was a little bit like, oh, a Black Gordon? Okay, this is gonna be a first. I don't think we've really seen a Gordon that's been black before. But then as soon as we see him in the trailer, I was like, perfect. Jeffrey Wright's voice, amazing. He's got the mustache, he's got the hair, although it's a little bit too black. I'm more accustomed to Jim Gordon having, you know, grayer hair. But I mean, his voice is just amazing. That part in the trailer where he delivers the riddle is just so smooth and just amazing. Zoe Kravitz looks like she's going to be an excellent Selena Kyle. I mean, I like Zoe Kravitz a lot. I liked her in Fantastic Beasts. I liked her as Mary Jane in Spider-Verse. She's also in X-Men First Class where she played Pixie. And I was like, that was Zoe Kravitz? But I mean, just looking at her, she seems like she's got the perfect Selena Kyle silhouette. I mean, you look at her face and she looks a lot like Catwoman. I'm not a massive fan of her sort of homemade look. It looks a little janky to me. I'm hoping that midway through the film, she sort of gets the more Arkham City style suit because, I mean, the Arkham City Catwoman suit is just perfection. Paul Dano looks like he's going to be great as Riddler. I mean, have you guys seen Prisoners? The dude's amazing. I love the voice modulator he has, but I'm not too big of a fan of the mask he wears where he's in the field. It sort of looks like Court of Owls-esque, and to me that's just not the Riddler. I'm hoping that we get a more comic-accurate green-suited Riddler throughout the rest of the film. But to me, the thing that takes the cake is Colin Farrell as the Penguin. I mean, holy crap, does he look amazing. I mean, the prosthetics and makeup team did a phenomenal job, and I'm pretty sure they're gonna win the Oscar for that year, because, I mean, holy hell, that stuff just looks fantastic. I'm also looking forward to Andy Serkis as Alfred, because, I mean, come on, it's Andy Serkis. He's a national treasure. I mean, he's fantastic and incredibly underrated. I mean, if any of you guys know, I'm a massive Lord of the Rings fan. I mean, look, I have Andoril right behind me, but I mean, I love Gollum. Andy Serkis is amazing. He's Gollum. He's gonna be great. I'm also interested that he kept a more Cockney accent for Alfred because, I mean, personally, I prefer the more upper-class Alfred who speaks, you know, the Queen's English and has the pencil moustache. But if we're going for Cockney Alfred, that's all fine. Andy Serkis is going to be amazing, as always. But the big question is, because he doesn't appear in this trailer, will he have the pencil moustache? That's a very big and important question because to me, Alfred is not Alfred without the pencil moustache. The music in the trailer was also perfect as well. It was just great at building the suspense and sort of establishing the tone this film was going for. Nirvana's Something in the Wind that transitions into Michael Giacchino's Batman theme was just mwah. Michael Giacchino's Batman theme is just perfect. And we haven't even heard the full thing yet. We heard it in the Pattinson reveal trailer where they showed the Batsuit, and it was more sort of detective-y and noir-y, but in this one, it was more sort of piano-y and haunting and echoey, and it was just, mwah, like, it's gonna be amazing. And the thing that I love most about it is that it's just incredibly catchy. It's just perfect. One thing I really love and respect about Michael Giacchino is just how passionate he is about this film. One thing I very distinctly remember is that when he was announced, he immediately came out and said that he already finished the Batman theme before he was actually officially announced, and just, that's dedication. That's passion. I mean, the fact that you can just imagine him and Matt Reeves just sitting in an office somewhere, just talking about Batman and being incredibly passionate, just shows that this film is gonna be a Batman's fanboy's wet dream. Hopefully we get a Dick Grayson tease by the end of the film because I'm hearing that the film ends with Batman going to Haley's circus, and then the second film is going to be Batman taking in Dick Grayson and training him to become Robin, and then it's also going to be adapting Batman Dark Victory, which I haven't read, but it's on my shelf over there. I mean, I just want a cinematic version of Robin because if you guys have seen my Titans video, you guys know that I love Brenton Thwaites, and I think he's the best live-action Dick Grayson. But that being said, in Titan Season 1, he's not the best representation of Robin because, I mean,
Fuck Batman.
I just want fun-loving, optimistic, upbeat, quippy Dick Grayson fighting side-by-side along Batman, kicking criminals' asses. Is that too much to ask for? I do think Aidan Gallagher, who plays number 5 in the Umbrella Academy, would actually be quite a good pick, especially if you're going for a more younger Dick Grayson who's around 15 or 16, which I think is the perfect age range because if you make Dick Grayson too young, then you just lose all the believability. Yes, we got Hit Girl in the Kick-Ass films, but you have to admit, it did look a little goofy that this 10-year-old child was beating up fully grown men. I think if you have a 16-year-old Dick Grayson beating up people as Robin, it's just much more believable, especially in this universe where it's going to be a lot more brutal. But overall, I am psyched for the Batman. That trailer to me was just perfection. I've watched that trailer so many times and just, I love it every time I watch it. Pattinson's gonna be great, the cast is gonna be great, the aesthetic looks great. I think it's just gonna be the perfect Batman film. But what did you guys think for the Batman trailer? Let me know in the comments down below. Like and subscribe and all the good stuff, hit the notification bell down there. My social media links are also down in the description, so if you give them a look in as well, that'd be very much appreciated. I also have a second channel where I make short films and vlogs, so if you're interested, please give that a look as well, it's in the description. And with all that being said, see you guys next time.